The story began with a man wounded in his stomach and a woman holding a sharp sword. People said she brought disaster wherever she went, and anyone who got involved with her would suffer. But this man didn't care at all. To him, her black hair was the most beautiful thing in the world. She had returned to save him. Her name, we'd find out later in the story. Let's go back to how it all started. In this world, turning 15 meant becoming an adult and registering with the Adventurers Guild. A priest would reveal your talent, a special gift given by the gods. Unfortunately for our main character, Vino, his talent turned out to be the weakest and lowest ranked job. A simple potion user. All he could do was make and handle potions really well, that was it. Meanwhile, his friends were gifted with powerful roles like warlords, heavy warriors, martial artists, and mages. In this world, power was everything for adventurers. And Vino had none. On missions, his teammates mocked him, calling him useless. Even though he was in an A-class party, his teammates, Ostal the heavy warrior and Rune the mage, constantly criticized him, saying his potions weren't good enough. Amina, the martial artist, sometimes defended Vino, but their leader, Tommy the warrior, stayed silent. They had all been friends since their days as D-class apprentices. Over time, everyone had moved up to A-class adventurers, except for Vino. He always lagged behind, feeling like a burden. Now, they were exploring an A-class dungeon heading deep into a cave to face the poisoned Cerberus. Vino knew this was his limit. After this quest, he planned to leave the party for good. After some time resting by the campfire and warming up, Vino noticed someone in the distance. He recognized her. It was Canadia, an A-class adventurer. She looked terrible, covered in wounds and barely able to stand. Canadia wasn't well liked by most adventurers. In fact, they called her the Grim Reaper and even wished for her death. It was a cruel truth for someone as strong as her. Her rare black hair was seen as a symbol of death in this country, and people treated her like a curse. Vino felt worried, but his party was already preparing to leave. As he caught up with them, he couldn't stop himself from glancing back at Canadia, feeling concerned. Just then, she collapsed, gasping for air. Without thinking, Vino rushed over. Up close, he could see her body covered in scratches and injuries. He tried to help, but Canadia didn't recognize him. She coldly told him to leave her alone. Despite her reaction, Vino handed her a few potions, introducing himself as an item user. He claimed his potions were better than the ones sold in stores. Canadia didn't respond, making things feel a little awkward. To prove the potions weren't poisonous, Vino opened one and drank it right in front of her. Then he quickly returned to his party, telling her to give it a try. At first, Canadia hesitated, but eventually she drank the potion. To her surprise, it worked instantly, healing all her wounds. Meanwhile, Vino's party finally faced the Cerberus and ended up in a tough battle. They felt confident as Ostal and Amina held the front lines while Rune cast spells from the back. Vino's role was tossing potions directly into his teammates' mouths to restore their mana and stamina. After years of practice, he had mastered the art of throwing potions perfectly, helping his team recover quickly in the middle of a fight. Being an adventurer for years, Vino had honed this skill to perfection. Failure was never an option for him. After a long, exhausting fight, they managed to defeat the Cerberus. Though some members tried to take all the credit, Vino felt relieved that he had brewed enough potions the day before. Just then, Tommy, their leader, called him over. Tommy thanked him, acknowledging his hard work. He told Vino that after completing 20 A-rank quests, it was time for him to take the S-rank promotion test. Tommy praised him, saying their party was close to becoming S-rank. But then Tommy said something that chilled Vino to the core. Without warning, Tommy stabbed Vino in the stomach, thanking him as he did it. Vino collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain, while his so-called friends laughed. Rune even burned his back with magic, joking that her hand had slipped. It became clear this was Tommy's plan all along. He wanted to kill Vino to exploit the adventurer compensation system. When an A-rank party member died, their party received a large payout. Amina, shaken by what just happened, hesitated as Tommy tried to convince her to go along with his plan. Tommy smugly said they would replace Vino with a real healing mage, someone who could use both recovery and holy magic. He claimed it would make the team stronger. Vino couldn't believe the betrayal unfolding before him. Tommy even took Vino's bag full of potions, claiming it was originally bought with his money, and assured him that Vino's hometown would receive their share of the compensation. He claimed they would be so proud to hear that Vino died with honor. He sneered as Vino lay helpless on the ground. Just as Tommy was about to finish Vino off, the cave shook violently. Confusion spread through the group as they turned to see a massive dragon towering behind them. It was an S-rank monster, the Tyrant Dragon. Panic hit Vino's party immediately. They distracted the dragon with magic and ran, leaving Vino behind as bait. Vino had some emergency potions, but there was no escaping a dragon. He figured this was it. He'd be dragon food. Honestly, life hadn't been great anyway. He'd left his village to become an adventurer, got stuck with the weakest job, and now even his team had betrayed him. All he could do was hope Tommy would send some money to his family. Just when Vino was ready to give up, a girl with black hair stepped between him and the dragon. It was the Grim Reaper Canadia. She appeared out of nowhere and managed to push the dragon back. Vino was stunned. Why would she help him? The reason was simple. He had given her a potion once. For Canadia, repaying kindness was a family tradition. If someone helped her, she couldn't ignore it. Canadia fought the dragon fiercely while Vino used a potion to recover. Her plan was to buy enough time for him to escape, but the dragon was too strong. With one swing of its tail, it slammed her hard against the cave wall. Vino didn't run away. He rushed to her side, but she kept telling him to leave. He couldn't do it, not without her. She was exhausted from fighting alone for so long, and though she smiled when she saw the potion he'd given her, she admitted she was tired in more ways than one. She said that if she died protecting him, it would be an honor. But Vino wasn't ready to die, and he didn't want her to die either. He had to save her, and there was only one way to do it. He'd be the bait. His plan was simple: heal her with a potion and distract the dragon with another. He had never thrown a potion with full force before, but now he had no choice. Vino took a deep breath, stretched his arm back, and threw the potion toward the dragon's neck. To his surprise, it hit perfectly. The dragon let out a pained screech as its neck was wounded. Wasting no time, Vino quickly tossed another potion to Canadia. She drank it and with her strength restored, unleashed her special skill. Her attack sliced through the dragon's neck with ease and the mighty beast was defeated. However, Vino, completely drained, collapsed as his vision darkened. When he slowly woke up, he found himself resting on Canadia's lap. She explained that he had passed out right after the dragon was slain. Embarrassed, Vino's face turned red. Waking up in her lap wasn't something he had expected. They introduced themselves properly, and Canadia asked about his party. When Vino explained everything, including how they had betrayed him, Canadia was shocked. Killing comrades was forbidden. Even so, Vino wasn't sure he could report them. It would cause too many problems, and as someone labeled useless, he doubted anyone would believe him. Canadia, however, disagreed. She saw something special in him. After all, it was Vino who had injured the dragon's neck, a feat even a giant golem's punch couldn't manage. And the potion he threw during the fight? It had healed all her wounds instantly. On top of that, he had tossed it with perfect accuracy without even looking. Even Kuroko from Kuroko's basketball would have the chills. She was amazed by his talent, though Vino still doubted himself. He seriously considered quitting adventuring and returning home. But after everything that had happened, maybe, just maybe, he still had what it took. Canadia excused herself and walked away. Noticing how lonely she seemed despite her strength, Vino asked her to form a team with him. Canadia hesitated, mentioning her black hair, a trait people often disliked. But Vino saw it differently. To him, her black hair was beautiful. In fact, when she had saved him, he thought she looked amazing. It might have sounded silly, but he admitted he wanted to keep seeing her black hair. Canadia's face turned bright red. She was too flustered to speak, and her words came out in a stutter. Vino didn't seem to notice, and sensing her hesitation, added that he wanted her to be his. Canadia misunderstood, thinking he had just confessed his love for her. She blurted out that they were definitely getting married tomorrow in town, then rushed off, excited to see him again while calling him her dear. Vino stood there, confused. Did that mean she accepted his offer to team up? Wait, married? He had only wanted to work with her and admire her hair. And so began the story of a humble potion maker at the bottom of the adventurer ladder and his unexpected future bride. Our protagonist managed to get married first compared to you, our dear viewer. The scene shifted to the town of Egbard, known for its skilled craftsmen. Vino finally arrived at the guild. As he walked in, he noticed a familiar face, Milva, one of the guild staff. She asked why he was alone and not with the assault team. It seemed the news of his supposed death hadn't reached this town yet. Vino simply explained that he wasn't part of the assault team anymore, leaving out the messy details. Even so, Milva was happy to see an A-rank adventurer like him in town, though Vino felt he didn't deserve the title. A little later, Vino sold the materials from the tyrant dragon they had defeated. To his surprise, they were worth a fortune, far more than he had expected. With all that money, he bought a large supply of potions. He planned to share some of the earnings with Canadia when she arrived the next day. Knowing they'd be traveling together for a while, Vino headed back to the inn to prepare. He planned to brew more potions for the journey ahead, but when he opened the door to his room, he was met with a surprise. Canadia was already there. She was smiling brightly, her happiness lighting up the room. She sweetly asked him what he wanted first: food, a bath, or her. Her face turned red as she mentioned the last option. Vino was so shocked that he dropped his entire bag of potion bottles. Canadia wasn't supposed to arrive until the next day, but it turned out she couldn't wait and had taken a carriage to get there faster. Even so, her arrival felt too sudden. Still in shock, Vino noticed all her luggage and asked if she was moving in. She nodded excitedly. Of course, if they were getting married, it only made sense to live together. Vino was speechless, his mind racing. Did she mean partner as in marriage? Canadia, as cheerful as ever, proudly announced that she had even made dinner for him. With no other option, Vino sat down to eat. He tried to ask about her plans for the next day, but she was too excited about finally meeting him face to face. It was almost like she had become a completely different person. The once brave and independent black-haired adventurer now acted like a love-struck bride-to-be. From now on, Canadia and Vino would have to work together. At one point, Vino casually told her to drop the formalities. When he asked her age, she casually mentioned that she had just turned 16. At 19, Vino suddenly remembered something. Canadia had only been an adventurer for less than 2 years, which meant she must have been a true prodigy. Out of nowhere, she confidently smiled and said that she was a devoted woman, assuring him that he had nothing to worry about. A little later, Vino picked up 2 quests, a B-rank gargoyle subjugation and a C-rank wolf subjugation. Milva, the guild staff member, was excited to see Vino teaming up with another A-rank adventurer. Vino then asked if there were any new quests from the trading town, but Milva explained that smaller local guilds like theirs didn't get much exciting news. She also thanked Canadia for gathering herbs the other day, which had made everyone happy. Vino noticed that Canadia's demeanor had changed. She had become more serious, and it wasn't hard to guess why. People had been whispering, amused by the pairing of the so-called Grim Reaper and a supposedly incompetent A-rank adventurer. Not wanting to hear more, Canadia grabbed Vino and dragged him out of the guild, ready to go. As they walked, Vino thought about what had been said. He didn't care what people said about him, but hearing them badmouth his comrades bothered him. Soon the couple arrived in the forest and Vino began setting traps. When he called out to Canadia, he noticed she seemed distracted, probably still thinking about the comments at the guild. She tried to brush it off, saying she was used to such comments, but she still worried it might damage his reputation. Vino understood how she felt and reassured her. He had been mocked plenty for being just a potion user and had gotten used to it. Besides, he had invited her to join the team for something far more important. He loved her black hair. That made Canadia smile and eased the tension between them. Suddenly, a wolf's howl echoed nearby. The trap had worked and the couple prepared for battle. As the wolves appeared one by one, Canadia said she would step back to watch her husband fight. Vino reminded her to step forward herself and take the lead in the battle. Vino and Canadia were surrounded by a pack of wolves. Canadia confidently told Vino to watch her every move, while Vino focused on what he had to do. He knew he needed to practice throwing potions. Until then, he had only been a support, but he wanted more. He wanted to learn how to attack. He worked on his aim, speed, and control. After throwing a few potions, he was shocked to see they worked. 3 wolves fell instantly, but there were still more. After a tense fight, they managed to defeat the whole pack. Canadia slumped to the ground, feeling useless. Vino had taken down most of the wolves, and she felt frustrated. Vino promised to find more monsters for her to fight next time. As night fell, they set up a campfire and cooked dinner. Vino's soup was just what Canadia needed. She admitted she had been eating alone for so long that sharing a meal made her feel unexpectedly happy. Then Vino asked her a simple question. Why had she become an adventurer? Canadia explained that it was because of her black hair. She came from a long line of black-haired warriors. Her father had taught her the OE technique, but there were baseless legends that said people with black hair brought destruction. Because of that, her family had to hide to avoid being persecuted. Vino had never seen anyone else with black hair. It was rare. Canadia was the only one he knew. She went on to explain that her parents had begged her not to leave the village, but she refused to live in fear. She didn't think she should be punished just for her hair. She wanted to change people's minds, so she set out to become an S-rank adventurer and earn enough honor to erase the grim legend about her family. But after reaching A-rank, things only got tougher. She faced even more insults, even when she fought with everything she had. Vino's offer to team up with her had been a rare moment of happiness. She still remembered when he told her that her black hair was beautiful. She had always taken special care of it. So deep down, she knew that if someone ever said something like that to her, she would probably fall for him. In the middle of her emotional confession, Vino told Canadia that he would support her. He admitted that after being kicked out of his party, he wasn't sure what to do next. But if helping her achieve her dream was something he could do, he was all in. He wanted to stand by her side and see the world she was determined to build. From now on, they would support each other. Canadia's mood brightened right away, and she declared that she would be the best wife ever. With a quest waiting for them the next day, they decided to rest. As Vino watched Canadia sleep, he couldn't help but think how beautiful she looked. It felt selfish to want to stay by her side, but if it made her happy, he vowed that no one would ever call him incompetent again. While checking on her sleep, Canadia wrapped her arms around him tightly, almost like he was her personal body pillow. He screamed in pain, but he couldn't get mad since Canadia looked so cute. The next morning, Vino looked completely worn out, while Canadia seemed bright and refreshed, as if she was the one who had been hugging him. They were now standing in front of an abandoned church, home to the gargoyles they needed to defeat. As they entered, 3 gargoyles came into view. Vino knew this wouldn't be easy, but Canadia seemed confident. She wasn't alone anymore and wanted to prove herself. The gargoyles began to move, and Canadia launched into an attack with her special technique. But the gargoyles fired blasts from their hands, knocking her off balance. She had never seen that kind of attack before. Vino quickly threw a potion and told her to open her mouth. The potion landed perfectly, like a homing missile. But this one was different. It made Canadia's body feel hot. Vino explained it was a recovery and strength-enhancing potion. With her new strength, Canadia quickly defeated the 3 gargoyles in a flash, slicing through them with a single swing of her sword. Vino was amazed by her power. Canadia smiled at him and asked if she had helped him this time. As they headed back, Vino casually mentioned that he could now track Canadia's movements, though he still had trouble keeping up with her incredible speed. Canadia blushed, feeling a bit embarrassed about having to put something big in her mouth earlier. But then, Vino remembered that even the guys from his old party hadn't complained about it. Hearing about his old party, Canadia didn't think of Vino as useless. Back then, he hadn't considered using potions to defeat enemies. But now, with his precise long-range throws, sharp eye for guiding his allies, and potions with special effects, she couldn't believe how blind his old teammates had been. She told him she was truly grateful from the bottom of her heart to have him by her side. Vino was left speechless. She admitted that she needed him, and she wasn't just being nice. This was what he had wanted to hear all along. Genuine trust from a true comrade. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Vino's old party was struggling. They looked awful and were completely overwhelmed, unable to handle even the weakest monsters anymore. After the battle ended, frustration filled the air. Even though they had earned the qualifications to become S-rank adventurers, they hadn't received any word from the guild headquarters. Tommy tried to calm Ostel down, but the truth was, they were all struggling. Fighting even weak monsters left them completely drained. Amina couldn't hold back her tears. All she wanted was to eat some of Vino's creamy soup. If they hadn't kicked him out, none of this would have happened, and no one could argue with her. Sure, Vino wasn't great in battle, but he could cook, and his food made camping more bearable. Tommy started thinking deeply. He had heard rumors in town that Vino, who they all thought had died after the dragon attack, had actually survived. Tommy thought Vino might spread bad rumors about them, but nothing ever came of it. More importantly, their current situation was much worse. The magician they had hired couldn't heal fast enough and was now being called incompetent. That's when Gal, the new healer, snapped. He turned on them, calling them the incompetent ones. He said their movements were even worse than those of B-rank adventurers. Gal continued to rant, saying that Ostel, their heavy warrior, didn't have enough firepower and charged recklessly, leaving his teammates behind when he should have been protecting them. Amina, the martial artist, couldn't even defend herself and got dizzy from weak attacks. Rune, the mage, was about to run out of magic after one more fight. Apparently Vino's magic potions had been keeping her going all this time. The worst part came when Gal criticized Tommy as their leader. He said Tommy didn't give any orders, letting them get hit hard by the enemy's powerful attacks. No one was scouting, and that's why they kept getting ambushed. Gal ended by saying that recovery magic could only do so much and that the person they had kicked out, Vino, must have been really good. He even wished he had teamed up with him instead. Amina agreed wholeheartedly, adding that if they had Vino's potions along with Gal's healing, they'd be unstoppable. But Tommy stubbornly refused to ask for help from someone he still considered incompetent. The cave suddenly rumbled, and a dragon appeared. Panicking, Tommy quickly ordered everyone to retreat. There was no way they could fight a dragon in their current state. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, the same type of dragon from the cave lay defeated. Vino and Canadia had taken it down easily. Over the past 2 weeks, they had mostly faced B-rank monsters or weaker ones, and Vino could usually defeat them instantly with a well-aimed potion. It sounded easy, but Canadia wasn't happy. She felt like she hardly got to fight anymore and worried that Vino might think she was useless and kick her out of the party. Vino quickly reassured her, telling her that if she wasn't there to hold the front line, he couldn't do his job. Her role was just as important. Hearing this, Canadia's mood lifted, and she proudly said that a wife should always support her husband. Vino, on the other hand, started feeling more confident. He thought that if he could throw potions even faster, he could defeat anything. He believed that a bigger monster, like one of the Calamity demonic beasts, would be the real test of his skills. With that in mind, Vino began planning their next move. The guild in the town was small, and they had already finished all the B-rank quests, so he suggested to Canadia that they go to a trading town to take on A-rank jobs. He thought they could start the next day. Canadia happily agreed, saying she would keep him safe until they got there. With the rest of the day free, Canadia excitedly suggested they explore the city together. A little while later, the scene shifted to the city, where Vino stood feeling unusually tense. He had never had a girlfriend before. Even though he was part of an A-rank party, the right chance never came, and no woman who truly loved him crossed his path. So when Canadia invited him out, his heart raced. Could she actually like him? He thought she might have been practicing her married life with him as her husband. While he knew it was a stretch to think that way, he didn't mind. Hanging out with a girl felt a lot like a date. Vino glanced ahead and saw Canadia turn to him. Her striking black hair caught the light. Today she was dressed casually, very different from her usual gear, and it made her look even more beautiful in the white dress. Vino's face turned bright red. Canadia gently reached out and took his hand, pulling him along to explore the city. Despite a few curious stares, they had a great time together. She told him she had always dreamed of walking down the street in a cute dress, but many people disliked her black hair and even threw rocks at her. She didn't want to get dirty. Vino felt worried when he heard that, but Canadia's joyful smile made him feel better. When they passed an ice cream stall, her eyes lit up with excitement. Since they were heading to the trading town the next day, Vino suggested they take their time and explore the city. The couple spent the day walking around the streets enjoying ice cream by the roadside. Eventually, they found a cozy bakery where they sat together and ate pastries as the sun set in the distance. Time passed quickly, and Canadia couldn't stop smiling. It had been such a fun day. Vino, on the other hand, hoped that even when they got to the trading town, they could still have moments like this. Canadia then told him he was kind. She mentioned that over the past 2 weeks, she had seen how others treated her badly. She asked if despite that, he would still want to stay by her side. She warned him that staying with her might bring bad luck, and she could even turn into his personal Grim Reaper. Vino laughed it off, saying he would be happy if his Reaper looked as cute as she did. Canadia's face lit up with happiness at his words. Suddenly a small child bumped into Canadia. Vino's instincts kicked in. This area was wide open and there was no reason to accidentally bump into anyone. Something felt off. Then he asked Canadia where she kept her wallet. She casually replied that it was in the back pocket of her skirt. Without thinking, Vino reached back to check, which made Canadia blush furiously. She asked him to stop since her butt was sensitive. Canadia misunderstood that Vino was not some outdoor fun, but Vino was already sure her wallet was gone. As evening began to fall, they started searching for it. Vino had seen this happen before with old parties, and he knew the security in the town wasn't great. Canadia hadn't even noticed her wallet getting snatched. She pinched his cheek, pouting and asking he had touched her butt 3 times. Vino didn't explain right away because they had just arrived in front of the orphanage building. Outside the orphanage, 3 kids stood close together, with Dino proudly showing off a wallet he had taken from town. Their excitement quickly faded when they saw how empty the wallet was. Just as they were about to complain, Vino and Canadia appeared behind them. Vino shouted at them, demanding they give back the wallet. He threatened to hit them with a potion that could poison or paralyze them, or even make them tell the truth. While 2 of the kids were distracted by Canadia's beautiful looks and her shiny black hair, she didn't pay much attention to the situation. Vino stayed focused, pushing Dino to hand over the wallet. Suddenly a girl named Allie stepped in, scolding Dino for stealing again and even smacking him on the head for causing trouble. Vino proudly told them that as an A-rank adventurer, he had the authority to deal with matters in the town, including the orphanage. Canadia raised an eyebrow, wondering if that was true, but quickly realized it was just a bluff to scare the kids. She kindly asked for her wallet back, saying it was a precious gift from her mother. Dino, feeling trapped, realized they were A-rank adventurers. He had thought they were just a weak old man and a silly girl, but now he understood they were much more than that. Before he could react, the orphanage caretaker rushed over, panicked, asking what was going on and pleading with them not to hurt the kids. Vino explained that Dino had stolen his partner's wallet and he just wanted it back. The caretaker, gently placing a hand on Dino's shoulder, saw the wallet slip from his grip. When she saw the evidence, she bowed apologetically and promised to take responsibility for her kids' actions. She begged Canadia for forgiveness. Canadia, relieved to have her wallet back, reassured her that everything was fine. But Vino wasn't finished. Noticing that Allie had injuries, he offered her a potion. At first, Allie was confused, but Vino assured her it wasn't poison. After some hesitation, she drank the potion, surprised by its sweet taste. To her amazement, the pain in her legs disappeared, and she could move freely again. The caretaker, grateful for Allie's recovery, admitted she couldn't afford to pay for the potion. Vino waved it off, simply asking for some water in return. Soon after they entered the orphanage, the caretaker offered them drinks and asked how she could thank Vino. He waved it off, saying she could think of it as just an adventurer's whim. The caretaker introduced herself as Piera, the headmaster. Vino then introduced himself and Canadia. While Vino tried to tell Dino to stop stealing, the orphaned kids had already gathered around Canadia, fascinated by her striking black hair. Piera noticed this and explained that the kids didn't know the legend of black hair because she avoided teaching them anything discriminatory. Thanks to generations of headmasters, the orphanage had managed to avoid passing on old prejudices. Piera admitted she had been shocked when she first saw Canadia's hair, but after seeing her kind face, it just seemed like an old tale. As Vino watched, he wondered if Canadia would ever trust anyone as much as she trusted him. His thoughts were interrupted when Dino called out, confirming that if Vino was an A-rank adventurer, he must be strong. Dino then asked Vino to kick some people out, whoever they were. Piera quickly silenced him, asking Vino to forget about it. But Vino wasn't one to ignore problems. If something was wrong, he wanted to know so he could decide if he could help. The room went quiet, the tension building until Piera broke it by asking if Vino had ever heard of Don Guillaume from the trading town. Of course, Vino had heard of him. There was no way he wouldn't know the boss of the Guillaume Merchant Guild. Nothing good ever came from him. He was known as a sociopath. Vino's old party leader Tommy had even warned him to avoid the Guillaume company. Vino suspected Tommy had taken some money from them, since they were supposed to be enemies with A-rank adventurers, but nothing ever happened. Piera explained that lately, Guillaume's employees had been visiting the town, pushing to build a large commercial facility on the orphanage's property. Worse, they wanted to take the children, claiming they were profitable and planning to enslave them. Vino's face grew serious. It was too risky to face a merchant guild directly, but the children's safety had to come first. He suggested sending them to the royal capital where public institutions could care for them. Once they turned 15, they would be considered adults and could work, which was much better than being enslaved. It seemed like a good plan, but Pierre was concerned about how they would afford an escort to get them there safely. Vino agreed with her. He knew he couldn't just walk the kids through lands full of monsters. Without thinking twice, he offered to be their bodyguard, and he would charge a very low price. Seeing how happy Canadia was with the children, he was more than willing to help. Suddenly, Canadia stood up, her instincts telling her something was wrong. She quickly asked Pierre if all the children had already returned home, but realized one was still out shopping. Panic filled her as she rushed outside. Her worst fears came true. Several men in suits were holding a little girl named Mana hostage. The girl's face was pale with fear. The men stood there smug and calm and said it was time to clean up the orphanage. They turned to Pierre and told her she had 1 week to leave. However, one of the men added that their plans had changed. Vino tried to calm things down, but the men wouldn't listen. They warned him not to get involved, saying they were just doing business. But what kind of business involved holding a knife to a child's throat? Vino felt like these men were acting alone. Even the corrupt GOM company didn't usually go this far. One of the men pulled out a contract demanding that Pierre sign the eviction papers. They promised to let the girl go once she did. Canadia got angry and wanted to take them down right then, but Pierre, shaking, had to make a tough decision. Vino stepped in and reassured her, saying she didn't have to sign the ridiculous contract. The men glared at him, clearly annoyed. They didn't think he could do anything to stop them, but Vino just smirked, knowing he had a trick up his sleeve: a bottle of potion. Vino found himself in a tough situation, facing 4 people from the Guillaume Merchant Guild. He wondered if he could handle them. Without wasting any time, he threw a potion at 2 of them, knocking them out right away. The other 2 were left in shock. Vino's potion throws always hit their mark, so using hostages as shields wouldn't work. With another quick throw, he signaled Canadia. One of the men holding Mana was hit, and Canadia rushed in to rescue the scared little girl. Vino knew he could take down the last man with another potion, but he also realized that if they backed off, the enemies might get scared and leave. That's when the last guy smirked and called out to someone named Sensei. A man with a katana stepped forward, clearly expecting adventurers. This man was no ordinary thug. He was middle-aged, wearing traditional Japanese clothing, which was rare in that region. He seemed ready to kill everyone. The katana swung down fast, but Vino dodged just in time. He quickly told Canadia to protect Pierre and the kids while he dealt with the swordsman. The problem was, Vino didn't have any fighting skills, just his potions. He didn't know how to defend himself either. But then he got an idea. He used his potion bottle to deflect the katana's strikes. His makeshift defensive move, which he called the potion parry, worked surprisingly well. The swordsman, who turned out to be a highly paid mercenary, started to panic. He was much more skilled than Vino expected. Vino found himself cornered. The swordsman had figured out his moves, and Vino knew he needed to think quickly. Just like when he defeated the tyrant dragon, Vino decided to throw another potion with all his strength. If it hit, it would probably knock the mercenary out, but it could also blow his head off, and Vino didn't want that. With time running out, he acted fast and threw a potion again. This time, he aimed lower, hitting the swordsman right in the most important area. The mercenary crumpled to the ground, completely defeated by Vino's now famous fork potion throw. How about naming it as the new tracker potion shot instead? The remaining thugs quickly retreated. Vino was surprised that it ended like that, but before he could think it over, Canadia hugged him from behind, smiling with happiness. She praised him, saying it was the strength she had always admired. Even Dino looked up at Vino with stars in his eyes, wanting to become a potion-using adventurer just like him. However, Vino advised Dino not to follow that path. He told him to stop pickpocketing and focus on protecting his teacher and friends instead. With that, the orphanage's problem was solved, at least for now. As Vino and Canadia were about to head back, the alarm from the guild sounded, signaling danger. Vino hadn't heard that particular alarm in years, and he knew it meant trouble. Without wasting any time, he signaled to Canadia that they needed to hurry, sensing the urgency of the situation. When they arrived at the guild, the adventurers were clearly worried. Milva was already there, looking relieved to see them. She seemed thankful to have two A-rank adventurers present in such a tense moment. She explained how serious things were and mentioned that she planned to call the guildmaster soon. Moments later, the guildmaster joined them. Milva told him that 18 adventurers had been gathered, but it wasn't enough given how dangerous the situation was. A Calamity-class cannonball dragon named Blani was heading toward the town and would arrive by morning. Vino understood the danger. Unlike regular monsters, Calamity-class beasts required large teams to defeat. The guildmaster's father had shared a legend about the dragon's appearance every 60 years. Whenever it came, the destruction it caused was unavoidable. To prepare for this, the town had built a special street to guide the beast's path. However, something was different this time. The dragon's path seemed to be heading toward the orphanage. Milva explained that no reinforcements would come. The royal capital was dealing with its own problems, and the famous assault team decided not to help since it had nothing to do with them. Vino couldn't believe it. He thought about their team, which only had himself, Canadia from the A rank, and 16 lower-ranked adventurers. It wasn't enough. Canadia, determined, made it clear that her main goal was to protect the children at the orphanage. Her words gave Vino an idea. He started making a plan. They needed to stop the dragon from moving forward, maybe by rerouting it through the back gate. It was risky, but it seemed like the best choice. The other adventurers weren't sure. Some quietly whispered, thinking Canadia might have brought the monster there in the first place. Vino noticed the tension and immediately reminded everyone that now wasn't the time for blame or mistrust. He told them they could question Canadia's strength once they were stronger than her. That quieted the group. Vino suggested to the guildmaster that they have a strategy meeting, understanding that they needed a strong plan. Even though Canadia was worried about him, Vino believed this could be the moment she needed to show everyone she could save the town. The next morning, the cannonball dragon slowly entered the town. Vino watched closely from the lookout post, completely focused. This wasn't just any monster, it was a Calamity-class beast with cannons built into its body like a living war machine. The town's evacuation had gone smoothly, leaving only Vino and 17 adventurers to face the dangerous crawling Blastoise. The plan was simple but risky. 6 heavy warriors, the flank squad, would try to hold off the dragon as long as they could. Another 6, the attacker squad, would aim for its legs to cause damage. 4 mages from the sorceress squad would target the cannons on the beast. Having dealt with a Calamity-class mission before, Vino found himself in charge of leading the operation. Meanwhile, Milva, clearly nervous, asked if the lookout post could be hit by the dragon's cannon fire. Vino calmly told her it was a real possibility, but if things went wrong, they would escape using gliding gear. He needed her to assist him throughout the day, and she agreed, still anxious. Vino had briefed the team earlier. Their main goal was to deal enough damage to force the cannonball dragon off course and make it retreat. However, Vino had another plan. With the power of his potions and Canadia's unmatched strength, he believed they could actually take down the beast. If they succeeded, Canadia would become the town's hero, breaking the curse of the black hair legend that haunted her. The dragon crashed through the main gate, its huge body rumbling down the street. The adventurers froze, shocked by its size and strength. Just as Vino had expected, he quickly ordered the flank squad to hold the dragon back while the attack team aimed for its legs. They moved into action, although some were clearly panicking. In the middle of all the chaos, Milva couldn't help but wonder how Vino managed to carry so many potions with him. Vino explained casually that while adventurers usually carried only 1 potion per slot, as a potion user, he had found a way to carry 99 per slot. So, while it looked like he had 10 potions, he actually had nearly 1,000. Milva was shocked and had trouble understanding this. But Vino kept working, tossing healing potions to the sorceress squad during the fight. Milva was still puzzled about how the potions were meant to be used. Weren't they supposed to be drunk with hands? Vino claimed potions could be shoved into the mouth and chugged down. Milva recalled adventurers sometimes defied logic, so she decided not to think about it too much. Canadia picked up speed and charged toward the monstrous cannonball dragon, launching her special attack. Her strike hit the beast's head, but it barely caused any damage. As Milva watched, her mind drifted to the first time she met Canadia. When Canadia arrived in town, the legend of her black hair had painted her in a bad light, and Milva wasn't exactly thrilled with her. But after seeing how Canadia, even though battered and bruised, always finished her tasks, Milva's opinion changed. Someone so genuine, so persecuted but never giving up, couldn't be a bad person. Now, as she sat at a party with Vino, Canadia seemed happier. Milva couldn't help but find it cute how Canadia blushed around him. They had even planned to go shopping together after this, and Milva sincerely hoped she'd make it back safely. Suddenly, Vino tossed a potion to Canadia, signaling her to switch to Plan A. A thick cloud of smoke quickly filled the air. This was a clear sign that the cannonball dragon was about to use its deadliest weapon, the cannons on its back. The problem was, there were too many. Before anyone could react, the cannons started firing in all directions, causing chaos to ripple through the town. Canadia was still moving, closing in on the dragon, and eventually made it onto its back. Milva, watching anxiously, felt her heart skip a beat. It was way too dangerous, but Vino remained calm. He explained that the potion he threw at Canadia earlier was called Type A magic powder, and now he was about to show her something interesting. With the 200 potions he had, each one infused with magic metal that only responded to Type A magic, the potions began to move on their own. Vino combined the explosive element from the bomb god with a strand of bomb rat hair. Suddenly, the potions started to float and line up, forming a deadly barrage aimed at the cannonball dragon. He called them potion missiles. The missiles hit the dragon's back with explosive force, and this time it worked. The beast staggered from the impact. Seeing the chance, the other adventurers attacked all at once. After Ven's powerful strike, the adventurers felt a surge of hope. It seemed like they might actually defeat the beast. Even Milva, standing in the chaos, felt like she was part of something incredible. But their relief didn't last long. The cannonball dragon roared so loudly that everyone had to cover their ears. Vino's gut told him something bad was about to happen. He shouted for everyone to retreat. The main gun was about to fire. In one quick motion, Vino grabbed Milva and used his gliding gear to shoot out of the lookout post. As they soared away, something strange began to happen to the dragon. After that terrible roar, its core started to glow. Just like the guildmaster's father had warned, the beast released a scorching heat ray, vaporizing everything in its path. A strange symbol appeared on the dragon's forehead. It had to be the core powering the deadly beam. Vino didn't waste time. He warned everyone to avoid the beam or they'd be reduced to ashes. Milva trembled with fear, wanting to run but knowing there was no escape. No matter where she went, the heat ray would catch her. But Vino had a plan. As an item user, potions were his specialty. If anyone could come up with something, it was him. He told Milva he'd handle it with potions. Milva just hoped she'd written a will before coming. Vino and Milva stood face to face with the huge cannonball dragon as it got ready to attack. The dragon was about to release a powerful blast, but Vino remained calm. He had a plan. Holding his prized explosive potion, he waited for the right moment. As the dragon opened its mouth, Vino threw the potion with perfect aim. It flew into the dragon's mouth and exploded with a loud boom. Smoke filled the air, but when it cleared, the dragon was still standing. Vino knew the battle wasn't over yet. He quickly signaled to Canadia, who was waiting above. She called down that it was time for Plan B. Canadia jumped down and was ready to finish the fight. Vino threw her another potion, aiming perfectly as always. She caught it with her mouth and something amazing happened after she drank the potion. White wings grew from her back. As they appeared, she rose into the air, glowing like an angel. Milva watched, amazed by the sight. Canadia's black hair and the bright white wings were stunning. Vino explained that it was a feather potion, a special one that allowed temporary levitation. It sounded strange, but the adventurers below stared up in wonder. Canadia floated above them like a fallen angel, ready to end the battle. Without wasting time, she charged at the dragon, aiming for its core. Her sword hit the mark, and in moments, the dragon's core cracked and shattered. The cannonball dragon let out one final roar before bursting in a brilliant flash of light. In the end, thanks to Canadia, the black-haired angel, the guild defeated a Calamity-class monster on their own. The town was safe, and the legend of the cannonball dragon came to an end. A week had passed since the cannonball dragon had caused chaos, and the town was slowly recovering. Adventurers had worked non-stop to break down the giant creature. The orphanage, which had been in the monster's path, had been spared. Even the Guillaume Merchant Guild decided to move their business to a safer location, avoiding the risk of another monster attack. It seemed like the town could finally relax. When Vino visited the guild, Milva greeted him with a big smile. The other adventurers, who had once doubted his abilities, now called him Potion Maniac. They eagerly waited for the potions he made, asking him to sell more. But Vino wasn't too happy with his new nickname. He thought Potion Lord would have been better, but he figured it was close enough. Things weren't perfect, though. Some of the female adventurers still kept their distance, looking at him with fear and disgust. Milva explained why. They were upset because Vino had forced them to drink his white, messy potions after the fight. Despite their reactions, some of these same adventurers had started showing interest in him. They invited him out, wanted to talk about potions, and even asked him on dates. Vino felt overwhelmed by the attention. Then, without warning, the women scattered in fear. Canadia stood behind them, giving off a terrifying vibe. She slammed her sword into the floor and said that men were bound to cheat. She didn't care who Vino loved, but as his wife, if he tried to win over another woman, she would die herself. Vino froze, panicking, and quickly tried to calm her down. But his words were not going through. Vino didn't have a choice but to sweet-talk his way through, claiming he would never let go of Canadia. He claimed her black hair and existence soothed his soul and wanted her by his side. After a tense moment, Canadia smiled sweetly, as if nothing had happened, and the crisis was over. Milva interrupted the conversation, her voice cutting through the chatter as she told them that a notice had arrived from the guild headquarters in the royal capital. The notice said that both Vino and Canadia had been chosen to take the certification exam to officially become S-rank adventurers. Everyone then cheered for the couple. Vino, surprised, asked if she was sure it wasn't just Canadia being considered. Milva showed them the official document which listed both of their names. Their excellent performance during the battle with the cannonball dragon had earned them high praise. Once Vino realized it was true, he got excited and congratulated Canadia, knowing how much this meant to her. She was also thrilled, knowing she was one step closer to reaching her dream. The other adventurers celebrated, giving Canadia the nickname Fallen Angel, which made Vino feel a little envious. Vino asked if Canadia was fine with the nickname. Canadia felt fine since the nickname was inspired by her black hair. Milva explained that the exam would be in 3 days, and the examiner was already on the way to the trading town. They would need to get ready to leave soon. Vino and Canadia were filled with excitement, eager to face this new challenge. The adventurers around them cheered, calling them by their new titles, Potion Maniac and Fallen Angel. For some reason, Vino felt insulted instead of praised. Soon, the scene shifted to the busy trading town of Tesla. It was a lively city with vendors setting up colorful stalls along the streets. Canadia was full of excitement at the thought of trying street food, but Vino wasn't as happy. He had been stationed at the guild in this town before until his old party Assault kicked him out. He couldn't shake the worry that he might run into them. Sensing his unease, Canadia tried to cheer him up. She reminded him that she too had spent time in this town and knew the bittersweet memories it held. But she assured him that together they would pass the S-rank test and leave their past behind, heading back to their quiet town. Her words helped Vino relax a little. If they did meet his former teammates, Canadia promised she would deal with them. Vino asked her not to. When they arrived at the guild headquarters, they were led to the reception room where the examiner was waiting. On the way, Vino saw someone he recognized, the guildmaster of Tesla. He nodded in greeting, but the guildmaster didn't seem happy to see them. His disapproval was obvious. Vino explained that the guildmaster had always been biased and was close to Assault. Now that Vino was out of Assault, it made sense that he would be seen as an enemy. Vino knew that Assault had taken advantage of the guild's compensation system, and the guildmaster likely helped cover it up. Canadia had also been forced to work alone instead of with a party, which was a form of harassment. The two could feel the judging eyes around them, and whispers followed them. If they didn't succeed in the S-rank test, the mocking would be endless, proving the rumors about their incompetence true. But Canadia smiled, confident that as long as Vino was by her side, she could face anything. In her eyes, he was the strongest potion lord. Vino disagreed, saying he was no match for the Fallen Angel. The couple stood outside the examiner's room. Vino knocked on the door and a voice called for them to come in. Inside was their examiner, Amelie, a well-known S-rank adventurer, famously known as Windmill. Vino recognized her immediately from the stories he had heard about her skills. To ease the tension, Amelie told them to skip the formalities since they were close in age. Vino was shocked when she revealed she was only 25. She looked much younger than he expected, which left him a bit stunned. Canadia, on the other hand, awkwardly looked away while sizing them up. Amelie seemed surprised as well. She had heard of Canadia, the famous Fallen Angel, but she wasn't sure what to think of Vino, the Potion Maniac, leading a team against a cannonball dragon. She had doubts about his strength, but admitted it had been a long time since someone qualified for S-rank in a support role. So, she had high hopes for him. Her attention then shifted to Canadia, and she examined her with interest. Amelie admired Canadia's strong physique like a perverted old man, which made Canadia squeal and glance at Vino for help. But he just shrugged helplessly. Amelie wasn't trying to be inappropriate. She was just trying to break the ice. She then explained the test. It would take place in an S-rank dungeon called the Nightless Corridor. As they walked, Amelie shared how she had filed a complaint with the guild about the way Canadia was treated. Canadia, an A-rank adventurer, had been going solo, which should have been reported to the royal capital. If Amelie had known, she would have recruited Canadia herself, as finding a vanguard with her potential was rare. The revelation made Vino angry. It was clear that the guild had ignored Canadia's situation for too long, causing her unnecessary suffering. For Vino, the guild had made a serious mistake by letting someone as skilled as Canadia face everything on her own. Moments later, the three of them stood in front of the guild. Amal mentioned that the dungeon was about an hour's walk away. Just as they were about to leave, a loud, familiar voice stopped them. Vino immediately recognized the rough, arrogant tone. It was Tommy and the rest of the assault party. They demanded answers. How could the incompetent Grim Reaper and Canadia get an S-rank exam when they, supposedly the most deserving, had not? Osel began ranting, claiming that Assault had the best shot at an S-rank and calling the guild a joke. Amal's smile disappeared and she gave them a sharp look. She warned them to be careful with their words. Her usual playful self was now serious as she called out Tommy, asking him if he really thought Assault could pass an S-rank exam. Silence followed. None of them dared to admit they weren't ready. Vino noticed the change in the group and pointed out that no one could claim they were past a certain rank, let alone an S-rank. His words hit a nerve, and both Ostel and Run became defensive. But Vino had a point. Back when he was with them, Assault could handle A-rank quests, but now they couldn't even manage those. He suggested that everyone should retrain, except for their healer. Canadia added that maybe their problem was relying too much on Vino's potions, instead of improving their own skills. Ostel and Rune seemed ready to argue, but Amina spoke up. She admitted that she had relied on Ven's potions all along. She even bowed and asked if Vino would sell them some of his potions for Assault. Amina had originally joined Assault to improve her skills, and had admired Tommy when he was still good. Over time, she had grown quickly, becoming one of their most promising members. Vino believed that if Assault hadn't lost its way, Amina would have become an even better adventurer. With a smirk, Vino teased Ostel, offering one of his special potions for a large silver coin. He doubted they'd even have enough for it given their current B-rank status. As expected, Ostel turned it down. Vino walked away, calling over his shoulder that they were barely managing B-rank quests. Tommy, furious, yelled out and challenged Vino to a duel. He said that if Assault won, the S-rank promotion exam for Vino and Canadia would be cancelled. Vino had enough. He turned to Tommy, asking if he even realized what he had just said. A duel with the S-rank test on the line? Did Tommy really think his arrogance had no limits? Even Ostel and Rune looked shocked. They had never heard him say anything so reckless before. Vino had always thought Tommy had leadership potential, but he would always crack under pressure. Refusing the duel would probably cause trouble later. Tommy wasn't someone who would bluff. He was willing to push things further than Ostel or Rune ever would. Still, Vino hated that Canadia was dragged into all this, so he decided to face Tommy alone. He declared he would crush Assault by himself, and if he won, no one better complain again. Amelie sighed as she watched the tension grow. She said, "Do whatever you want. I'll be waiting at the Nightless Corridor entrance. The winner gets to take the test," and walked off, leaving them to figure it out. Canadia, fired up, promised to cheer Vino on with all her might. Then someone raised their hand and opted out of the duel. It was Gal, the healer who had recently joined Assault. He had heard rumors about the potion maniac and didn't want to get caught up in Vino's personal grudges. After all, he didn't want to get hurt fighting the guy who had once taken down a cannonball dragon with potion missiles. Amina also backed out, saying she couldn't fight Vino. She explained that Assault had already betrayed him once, almost killing him, and now Tommy was pushing things even further. She couldn't bring herself to fight him. Looking back, Vino realized Amina probably didn't know about the plan to get rid of him in the dungeon, which explained her confusion back then. With Gal and Amina out, only Ostel, Rune, and Tommy were left to face him. Vino shrugged. He was confident he could take them on alone. Canadia had felt anxious about the duel, but Vino and the Assault team had already agreed to the terms. He looked at them, wondering if they even knew he fought using potions. Sure, he was outnumbered, but with the techniques he had perfected, he believed he had a chance at winning. All Canadia could do now was watch and support him. They moved to the training grounds inside the guild, where other adventurers murmured, curious about who was fighting. Just then, Amelie, who had planned to wait at the dungeon gate, showed up right in front of the training grounds. Inside, Vino and the Assault team were getting ready for battle. Gal couldn't believe a mere potion user was confident in a duel, but he personally doesn't care about the results. Amina figured Vino must have a plan to win, but she didn't think she'd feel happy even if Tommy won. Meanwhile, Canadia stood on the sidelines, silently praying for Vino's success. When the duel began, Vino taunted them, daring them to attack from any direction. Rune moved first, preparing to cast a spell, but before she could finish, Vino threw a potion into her mouth, stopping her chant. It wasn't just any potion. It was a silence potion, made to block magic chanting. A second potion hit Rune on the forehead, knocking her out cold. Ostel, furious about these tricks, charged in with his sword to strike at close range. But Vino blocked every attack with his potions while complaining about how Ostel had always claimed he'd take all the damage for the team, only to act like a coward. Potion after potion flew as Vino expressed his frustration, especially since Ostel had mocked him even while drinking the potions he made. With each throw, Vino chipped away at Ostel's shield, but it wasn't just deflecting. His potion was mixed with a special liquid that made the shield more vulnerable to the next attack. Then Vino threw a thunder potion made from lightning magic stones. Hostile couldn't dodge it, and a shock of electricity surged through him, knocking him out instantly. Tommy was the only one left looking shocked. He just stood there until Vino yelled, asking what kind of leader just sat around doing nothing. Vino had always known Tommy wasn't much of a talker, but to go silent at such a critical moment, especially when Vino had clearly won, was too much. Turning away, Vino told Tommy to stay out of his and Canadia's lives. He added that if Tommy wanted a potion, he'd better bow and ask properly. Tommy, filled with anger, watched as Vino walked away. In a rage, he decided to strike Vino from behind, causing panic among everyone at the training grounds. Without thinking, Canadia ran toward Vino, shouting for him to duck. But it was too late. Vino could only watch as Canadia reached him and shielded him from Tommy's attack. She fell in front of him and he cried out her name, panic rising in him. Thankfully, Canadia was okay, just with a small scratch on her cheek. Vino breathed a sigh of relief and handed her a healing potion, grateful that nothing worse had happened. Realizing he had let his guard down, Vino turned back, furious. He yelled at Tommy, calling him out for his cowardly and dishonorable actions. Tommy had crossed a line by threatening those Vino cared about, and there was no way to forgive him now. Vino's angry voice was so strong and pressuring that it made Tommy shake all over. Without thinking, Vino threw a potion into Tommy's mouth, freezing him in place. It was a bind potion which paralyzed Tommy's body, making him unable to move. Vino didn't waste any time. He wanted to end the fight quickly. Suddenly, dozens of potions floated in the air, ready to fall. Canadia froze in shock. She knew Vino's plan. He was about to throw 99 potions at once, a move he called Potion Gatling. With lightning speed, Vino started throwing potions at Tommy one after another. He moved so fast that he was just a blur. The fast attack was too much for Tommy to handle, and soon he collapsed, knocked out cold. The crowd was stunned, including Amelie, who had been peeking from the doorway. She had come out of concern but was speechless seeing how Vino used potions in battle. Tommy was out, and Vino ended the fight. He walked over to Canadia and apologized for being reckless, but she just smiled, glad to have played her part as his vanguard. While Rune Ostel and Tommy were getting treated by Gal after their tough fight, it was clear that the potion maniac had won in a big way. Amina, feeling nervous, walked up to Vino. She had wanted to apologize for a long time. She admitted that she had left him behind as bait for the dragon instead of helping. She explained that she was so scared she couldn't move and all she could think about was escaping. She wasn't asking for forgiveness, just telling Vino how sorry she was for abandoning him as a friend. Vino understood. He also felt responsible. He thought that if he had realized his own strength earlier, he might have passed the S-rank test with Assault and avoided all the trouble. Vino then asked Amina if she wanted to stay with Assault or leave. He told her he wanted her to make her own decision. Amina, with a shy nod, chose to stay. Then Vino turned to Gal and asked about his plans. Gal admitted that he didn't like how Assault did things, but he recognized real talent in the group, so he decided to stay and keep an eye on them. This time he was serious about earning his rank, and as another healer, he wasn't about to let Vino outshine him. Vino and Canadia got ready for the S-rank test, supported by Gal and Amina. When Vino glanced at them, he felt a familiar spark. Being with them almost made him feel like he was back with Assault, tackling quests like old times. But things had changed, and it was time for Vino to move on from Assault. He had bigger goals now, with a new team by his side. Meanwhile, Tommy woke up feeling groggy, but aware that Gal was sitting nearby. The first thing Gal said was that Tommy was an idiot for using cheap tactics and still losing. He then told Tommy that Vino and Canadia were heading to their S-rank test. Amina, serious as ever, joined them and gave Tommy a light punch to the head, even though she clearly wanted to do more. She called him stupid for always trying to hurt Vino. Tommy could barely respond. He admitted he had been completely defeated and that power was all that mattered. But Amina wasn't having it. She wasn't going to let the team fall apart. Gal had promised to look after them until they reached S-rank, and honestly, she would be lost without them. If Tommy wanted to stay on the team, she told him he had to step up, become a real adventurer, and aim for S-rank with them. He had to promise right then and there. Tommy took her hand, apologized, thanked her, and promised to train harder than ever. He vowed to come back stronger than anyone else. At the entrance to the Nightless Corridor dungeon, Amelie was relieved to be back just in time. Vino and Canadia had finally arrived, though Amelie seemed a bit out of breath, likely from rushing after watching the duel. To ease the tension, she made some small talk before unlocking the dungeon gates to begin the test. Inside, a staircase led down into the depths. As they descended, Vino wondered what kind of test awaited them. Amelie gave a knowing smile, hinting they'd find out at the bottom, but also reminded them that they'd have to deal with monsters along the way. As they moved through the dungeon's vast, dark corridors, Vino felt that powerful creatures were lurking in the shadows. He tried to coordinate with Canadia, feeling a bit tense, but before he could settle into a plan, Amelie wrapped an arm around each of them to calm their nerves. She jokingly told Vino, after seeing his potion Gatling move, that he had no reason to worry. She also helped to ease Canadia's tension by ticking her sides. She also suggested Vino do the same level of skinship with Canadia. Moments later, mechanical monsters appeared, looking more like machines than creatures they'd faced before. Amelie quickly explained that these robotic beasts could repair themselves, making them harder to defeat. With that, she started the S-rank exam, eager to see how well Vino and Canadia would handle the challenge. Vino commented that facing 4 of the machine monsters was too much. He told Canadia to save her energy and decided to throw potions as fast as he could to bring the monsters down. But each monster only needed 1 hit to turn into scrap. Vino thought they were weak but warned Canadia not to let their guard down. Amelia watched them and found the two interesting. She had been an S-rank adventurer for 4 years and had some experience as an examiner. Originally, Assault was supposed to take the S-rank test, but their antisocial behavior kept them from doing so. Then rumors of an attempted murder surfaced, and soon there were whispers about Canadia, a solo A-rank adventurer. Her black hair made people discriminate against her, but her talent was undeniable. She had impressive victories, like defeating the Cannonball Dragon, which made her almost certain to become an S-rank. Amelia's initial goal was to promote Canadia and bring her to the royal capital, but Amelia was surprised to see Vino, the potion user, in Canadia's party. Vino was only known as a support at first, but his reputation grew after the Cannonball Dragon incident. Amelia saw how he led the fight and planned to take him as an asset to the royal capital too. Soon, they reached a door with a touch panel. Canadia touched it, and a robotic voice confirmed the identity of a black individual. A wall opened, and Vino wondered if it was a trap, but Canadia thought it might be the right path. Amelia was confused but didn't say anything. Vino suggested they move forward. As they continued, Amelia wondered if she should tell them the path they opened was unexplored. But she didn't want to risk her reputation as an S-ranked adventurer and examiner. They were supposed to go to a big room to the right, but seeing how the couple found a new path, Amelia thought about canceling the exam. If things got dangerous, she could fight alongside them. She asked if it was okay for Vino to keep throwing potions. Vino said he had used over 100 when fighting Assault and was now worried because he had fewer potions. He confirmed he had around 800 left. Amelia, confused, asked Canadia if she understood. Canadia explained that Vino could turn 1 potion slot into 99 and told Amelia to just watch. Everything seemed fine, but Amelia promised to step in if things went wrong. Vino didn't mind failing, but he was curious about the dungeon they had entered. Amelia said there wasn't much information despite the royal capital's investigation. Vino also wondered about the door that talked about black individuals. Canadia shared that the black-haired people came from the Black Nation, an old name for the village where she was born. Vino wondered if it was really related to the black people, but Canadia didn't know much since she was too young to learn about it. Amelia then told a story from a long time ago about an uprising between the black and white people. She said the white people who lived in the north had information that even the royal capital couldn't get. She thought it would be better to learn more from Canadia's people. She also mentioned rumors of a beautiful white-haired woman in the White Nation's capital. There was no doubt that Canadia was a descendant of the Black Nation. Vino thought the dungeon might have been left by Canadia's people and thanked her for helping them move forward. Canadia smiled, urging him to explore more and then go home. The three soon reached a dead end. However, there was a small hole to crawl through and they could see a mechanical door ahead. Canadia offered to open it and tried to crawl through, but she struggled because of her large assets. Amelia, annoyed, started tickling Canadia's feet. Worried, Vino asked if it was okay to continue since the path they had taken didn't seem to relate to the test. Amelia was surprised that Vino had noticed. However, Canadia was the key to exploring the dungeon, and Amelia couldn't force them to stop. It would be hard to continue without Canadia. Vino realized that even the royal capital couldn't investigate further. Amelia agreed and said it would be more efficient for just the three of them to continue, as protecting scholars would be difficult. For now, she wanted to take a look at the end and then leave. Vino called her reliable, and Amelia claimed it was natural since she was a veteran. Vino thought about how Amelia was a mature woman. She then jokingly offered to show the charms of a woman's body, and enjoyed teasing him. Suddenly, Canadia slashed at the boulder blocking the path. She had just come out of the hole and couldn't believe the two were having fun without her. She angrily told them she had already unlocked the door ahead. Vino, flustered, was relieved she was okay. Canadia wiped her tears and joked that it was always the wife crying in the end. She warned Vino that if he ever cheated for real, she'd tie up his fingers. Vino claimed he was the victim, but Canadia wasn't listening to any excuses. When the three entered a room, a hologram appeared, congratulating them on their success. The hologram also discussed the White Nation's invasion and said they couldn't let them take their heritage. The recording stated that the challengers needed to prove their worth for the inheritance and advised any non-combatants to retreat. Just then, a door opened, and a huge horned monster appeared. Vino wondered if it was a monster or a machine, but Amelia said that wasn't the part to worry about. Meanwhile, Canadia still thought the monster was part of the exam. Vino, standing behind her, was excited. Amelia said the exam was over and told the couple to run away while she distracted the monster. Vino, however, laughed and said she must be joking. He had finally found something perfect to test his potion-throwing skills. He asked if he could join the fight instead. Canadia added that this was a trial for them as a couple, and they couldn't become S-rank adventurers without defeating the monster. She asked Amelia if that was true. Seeing their determination, Amelia couldn't hold them back any longer but promised to step in if things got dangerous. The couple charged forward eagerly. However, Amelia noticed the hundreds of crystals covering the monster's body and guessed it wouldn't be easy for them to break through its defenses. The monster suddenly fired crystal shards, but Vino quickly smashed a barrier potion, creating a shield to block the attack. Amelia wondered if the potion used magic. Canadia dashed toward the monster and slashed at its body. At the same time, Vino threw a potion with all his strength. However, the monster had its own barrier, which stopped the potion. Vino was surprised, but Canadia wasn't discouraged. She followed up with another attack, leaping above the monster to strike. Unfortunately, the monster's horns deflected her sword. The monster roared, sending more crystal shards flying. One of them hit Canadia, wounding her. Vino reacted quickly, throwing a healing potion straight into her mouth. Fully recovered, Canadia thanked him. Amelia was impressed that Vino could heal someone from a distance, something even many healing mages couldn't do. However, she found the sight of a potion bottle stuck in someone's mouth awkward and told Vino it wasn't proper behavior. Vino ignored her and pulled out dozens of potions. He leaped into the air and threw them like a machine gun. Even Amelia was left speechless. She was also amazed by how skillfully Canadia redirected the bottles toward the monster, hitting it with precision. The couple noticed they were chipping away at the monster's crystal armor. Canadia suggested increasing their firepower and they launched a non-stop attack. Suddenly, the monster let out a roar so loud it shook the entire dungeon. Its forehead crystal began to glow, and Amelia realized something big was coming. She tried to intervene, but Vino stopped her, telling Canadia to use Plan C, which they hadn't been able to use on the cannonball dragon. Amelia watched in confusion as Canadia chugged her 10th potion. Then Vino lifted her up, and Amelia finally understood their plan. Since humans are mostly made of water, Canadia had turned herself into a living potion container. With Vino's throwing skill, he could launch her like a potion bottle. Although Amelia disapproved of such a risky move, Canadia moved faster than ever. Using her family's sword technique, she struck down the monster before it could raise its barrier. The beast roared one last time before collapsing to the ground with a heavy thud. Amelia was amazed by the couple's victory. Vino sighed in relief, glad they had managed to win. But then Amelia noticed Canadia trembling and asked if she was hurt. It turned out Canadia just needed to unload all the liquid she had consumed. Amelia called them reckless, but they had succeeded in the end. By nightfall, they had made it out of the dungeon. Amelia congratulated them on passing the S-rank promotion exam. She said they were sure to be promoted since they had discovered a new route and defeated an S-rank monster. She suggested they move to the royal capital and look for a house. Canadia broke into tears, overjoyed that she was one step closer to her dream. Amelia hugged her warmly and congratulated her again. Vino then approached and thanked Canadia for being his party member until now. He suggested they take a break and celebrate before heading to the capital. He promised they would do their best together, and Canadia smiled in agreement. Meanwhile, a female mage stood atop a building in the capital, gazing at the night sky. She whispered to herself that it was another day to make the sky her own lapis lazuli. A swarm of undead was chasing a carriage through the forest. The coachman, drenched in sweat, begged Vino, an adventurer he hired for protection, to help him escape the woods quickly. Vino assured him they could outrun the undead. However, zombie birds appeared overhead, circling the carriage. Vino shot them down using potions. The merchant, confused, asked what Vino had thrown, and Vino simply said it was a potion. Before they could argue further, the carriage came to a halt. A Dullahan, a headless knight, blocked their path. Vino remembered the monster could use ice magic and saw it chanting as it approached. He quickly climbed down from the carriage, knowing he couldn't let the goods inside be destroyed. Deciding on a fire potion, Vino acted fast. Just as the Dullahan raised its spear, Vino threw the potion, smashing through the monster's thick armor. The attack worked. Seeing the potion's speed and effect, Vino decided to name it the Gyro Potion. By morning, they arrived safely at the Kingdom of Testaria. The merchant, still shaken, admitted he thought he was going to die. Vino reminded him that was the risk of taking the fastest route through Devil Forest, an S-rank dungeon. The merchant explained he couldn't afford a detour because his goods had to stay fresh. Curious, he asked for Vino's name. Vino proudly introduced himself as an S-ranked adventurer from the Royal Capital Guild. The merchant then realized Vino was the potion maniac, known for scattering battlefields with potion bottles and glass debris. Vino, annoyed by the title, corrected him. It was Potion Lord, not Maniac. That night, Vino returned home, his body aching. Before entering his room, he smelled curry for dinner. Inside, Canadia, his partner, greeted him warmly and asked if he wanted food or a bath first. Vino chose food, and Canadia began setting the table. It had been 4 months since they started living together as S-ranked adventurers in the royal capital. With higher quest rewards, they had rented a better house. Initially, Vino wanted separate homes, but Canadia had refused. As they ate, Canadia praised Vino for his work that week. Vino mentioned he had been busy every day and asked if anything interesting had happened. Canadia said the Phantom Thief had been making headlines and the Gilal Merchant Guild was hosting a big event in the aristocratic district. When Vino asked about her work, Canadia shared that she had been helping train the kingdom's soldiers. Although they were rude to her at first, they became respectful after she defeated their chief in combat. Her reputation had grown among the army, and even the knights admired her. Canadia casually mentioned a knight had asked her out to dinner. Vino flinched at the news, but Canadia reassured him that she was devoted to him. She even declared they were the ideal couple. Vino realized her view of their relationship was far different from his own. He used to think she was joking about her feelings, but now he wasn't so sure. When he nervously asked what an ideal couple should do, Canadia replied that they should support and live for each other. Her honesty made Vino reflect on his own feelings. Deep down, he knew he cared for her, but he wasn't ready for marriage. Canadia then teased him about his passionate proposal when they first met. Vino felt like correcting her misunderstanding, but something told him not to. Suddenly, Canadia stood up, radiating a terrifying aura. She claimed she could smell traces of 8 different women on Vino's belongings. She even identified some of them by name. Alarmed, Vino tried to deny it, but she was spot on. Canadia, normally sweet and kind, could become frighteningly possessive. Vino knew from experience how intense her love could be. He still bore the scars of her jealous fits, yet he couldn't deny how much he relied on her. They worked well together as partners, and for now, he decided to leave things as they were. To change the topic, Vino mentioned taking another quest together the next morning. Canadia let the matter drop for now, but threatened to tear off his fingernails if she found anything suspicious again. Later that night, Vino was reading a newspaper when Canadia entered his room, casually dressed. She asked if she could sleep beside him since he'd been away for a week. Though flustered at first, Vino had grown used to her clingy nature. They both looked forward to working together on their next quest and wished each other a good night. When a man and a woman lay down on the bed together, there was only one thing to do. Of course, sleeping. What did you guys think? Vino was amazed at how Canadia could fall asleep in just 3 minutes. He knew it was her way of showing trust in him, but she was so carefree that it made him blush whenever he looked at her. Being a healthy young man, it was hard for him to sleep in such a situation. To deal with it, he decided to use one of his sleep potions. The potion helped him sleep soundly until morning. Though tempted to give in to his feelings for Canadia, he couldn't act on them while she was asleep. If he ever did, he wanted her to be awake so he could express his emotions properly. However, there was a downside to using the sleep potion. Vino woke up and realized his hands were resting on something soft. He noticed how large they felt and immediately snapped back to reality. Whenever he used the potion, he tended to move in his sleep. Thankfully, Canadia always woke up after him. When Canadia woke up, she giggled, noticing her clothes were messed up from sleeping. Vino pointed out her bad sleeping posture, though he felt guilty about what had happened. Later, the two set out on their S-ranked quest. Canadia mentioned that it had been 3 weeks since they last worked together, as they had been handling separate tasks. She teased Vino about his popularity, saying even Amelia wanted him on her team. Vino just laughed it off and explained their mission. Their target was an S-ranked bird monster called Terrawave. It was considered weak but lived high in the sky with its young. The baby birds had a habit of collecting shiny objects and had been stealing from jewelry stores in the capital. Their job was to retrieve a specific piece of stolen jewelry. They arrived at Phoenix Mountain where the Terrawave lived. Both worried that their jumping abilities and feather potion wouldn't be enough to reach the top. Vino reassured Canadia, telling her not to worry because he had a secret plan. He reminded her that with her by his side, no enemy could beat them. Hearing this, Canadia felt more confident. Suddenly, a pack of high wolves appeared. Canadia quickly defeated them with a single strike, proudly saying she wouldn't be a burden anymore. This reminded Vino of their first mission together when Canadia couldn't keep up with the wolves because he was much faster at taking them down. Now, however, she had grown strong and dependable. Vino couldn't help but admire her as his beautiful and reliable partner. Canadia urged him to hurry ahead, and the two pressed on with their mission. Later, a baby bird noticed a ring lying nearby. The ring was actually a trap set by Vino so they could follow the bird back to its nest. Canadia, however, was upset when she realized the ring he had given her was being used as bait. Venos apologized and promised to fix the ring if it got damaged. But Canadia wasn't satisfied. She insisted that Venos replace it with a ring worth 3 months of his salary if it broke. Surprised by her demand, Venos quickly changed the subject, pointing out that they might lose sight of the bird. Canadia sighed and told him to seriously think about what she said. The two soon arrived at the base of a cliff. Venos handed Canadia some potions and told her to be careful. The baby bird flew off again, leaving them with only one chance to face the Terra Wave, a giant creature resting in a nest full of shiny objects. The Terra Wave noticed them right away, and Canadia wasted no time taking the lead. She climbed the cliff toward the monster's nest with ease. The Terra Wave let out a loud screech aimed at Canadia. Venos had expected this and knew they needed to distract it. He threw a potion at the monster, hitting its neck. The Terra Wave's attention turned to Venos, and it created a powerful tornado by flapping its massive wings. It looked like magic, but Venos knew that if the tornado became solid, he could use his potion parry technique to defend himself. Alright, now this is getting ridiculous. Canadia took the chance to attack the monster with her sword skill, but the Terra Wave quickly backed away and flew off. The two of them noticed that it left its nest behind to escape. Canadia then asked Veno to throw something at her. A potion came flying her way. It was a special mixture Veno had made by combining wind magic stones, bomb debris, and scales from a monster called Jet Boar. When Canadia grabbed the bottle, air burst out from its opening. This was a jet potion, designed to help someone fly through the skies. Using the jet potion, Canadia managed to catch up to the fleeing Terra Wave and struck it with her sword. Afterward, Canadia bid farewell to the monster and began falling from the sky. Veno watched her descent but didn't worry. Canadia used a feather potion which caused wings to grow on her back. True to her nickname, she looked like a fallen angel as she floated down toward Veno. When she landed, Canadia complained about getting a burn from the jet potion. Veno apologized and quickly grabbed some recovery potions for her. Canadia, however, used the moment to act spoiled, saying her hands were full. With no other option, Veno tossed the potion directly into her mouth. Canadia protested, saying that wasn't what she had meant. That night, the two finally got back home with several heavy sacks. It took them 2 days to unload all the stolen jewelry they had recovered, which turned out to be even more exhausting than fighting the monster. While Veno inspected the jewelry, he noticed Canadia heading straight to bed. She complained about being tired, but ended up lying on Veno's bed. Veno tried to wake her up so she could eat and clean up, but within seconds Canadia set a new record for falling asleep. Veno understood they were both worn out from their separate tasks and this mission, so he let her rest. Canadia was already sleep-talking about the jewelry. Watching her, Veno wondered about his plans for the next day but eventually fell asleep at the table. He woke up at midnight and decided to move to his bed. The next morning, Canadia paced nervously around the guild hall. When Veno showed up, she asked if everything went well. Veno told her the guildmaster was angry, and Canadia worried they might be demoted to A rank. Veno didn't think that would happen, but he couldn't believe someone had broken into their room and stolen more than half of the jewelry they had recovered. Canadia apologized for going to bed early, but Veno admitted he was also to blame. Now, their only problem was figuring out who the thief was. At that moment, Milva appeared with a cup of coffee to calm them down. Veno was surprised to see her in the capital. Milva explained she had come 2 days earlier to help with staffing at the capital's guild. She mentioned hearing about the famous potion maniac in the city. Her cheerful presence helped lift Veno's spirits. Milva also brought up the time she almost died during the Cannonball Dragon event because of Veno, but added how angelic Canadia had looked when she finished off the monster. Canadia invited Milva to go shopping, and Milva eagerly agreed. Later, Milva led them to a crowd gathered around an SS-ranked adventurer named Peluest. Peluest and Milva exchanged greetings as they knew him from before. Veno recalled that Peluest was the only SS-rank adventurer in the country and a skilled traveler. He was famous for his archery, which used an infinity quiver, a special skill that let him shoot endless arrows. He greeted Veno in his usual rough way and asked for some spare potions since he had enjoyed the last batch. Canadia also greeted him, and Peluest praised how far she had come, though Canadia said she still had a long way to go. Peluest encouraged her and cheered her on. Veno wondered how Canadia knew him so well. Peluest then asked Veno to team up while he was in the capital. Veno happily agreed. More adventurers arrived to greet Peluest, and Milva couldn't hide how impressed she was with the SS ranker. Seeing this, Veno hoped he could show off his own skills someday too. Suddenly, an ominous figure appeared behind him. It was the Phantom Lich, Sign, the kingdom's strongest wizard. Sign asked if Veno was the new S-ranked potion user. Veno tried to greet him, but Sign told him to stay away. He accused Veno of spreading strange potions around the country and forcing people to drink them. Sign also mentioned hearing rumors about Veno flirting with the guild's newest idol, Milva, despite having a beautiful teammate like Canadia. Vino quickly corrected him, explaining that Canadia was his teammate and Milva was just a friend from Crafttown. Sign, to Vino's surprise, knelt on the ground, expressing how jealous he was. Vino couldn't believe the Phantom Lich he admired was acting like this. To ease the tension, Vino offered to team up with Sign and Canadia in the future. However, he still needed to find the thief first. Sign, intrigued, suggested asking Amelie for help, as she had free time. Soon, Vino and Canadia were seen making plans in the streets to catch the thief. Canadia thought she could identify the stolen jewelry, which might help track them down. Out of nowhere, Amelie appeared and tickled Canadia's sides, teasing her. She greeted them by showing a newspaper headline about a phantom thief named Tina, who had been stealing from corrupt nobles and mafias to help the poor. The stolen jewelry in the article matched what had been taken from Vino and Canadia. Amelie explained that Tina first appeared 6 months ago and had been evading even the royal guards. She teased Vino, saying it was probably because of his weird potions. Vino stared at Tina's photo in the newspaper and decided to catch her to clear their names. The phantom thief Tina had started appearing 6 months ago. She sent out notices, gathered crowds, and made grand entrances. She used magic tricks to steal from her targets. Her targets were corrupt nobles, the mafia, cruel landlords, and anyone who tried to harm the slums. Everything she stole was given to the poor, earning her the title of a righteous thief. However, Vino still wondered why Tina had stolen from him and how she knew about his treasure. Canadia guessed it was because of the rumor about the Terra Wave and that Tina might have known they would return with it. Vino agreed and also noticed that not everything had been stolen. So far, he recognized the missing items were from the Royal Museum of Art and well-known jewelers. The ones left behind were from unknown origins. On top of that, the ring Canadia had given Vino earlier was also missing, and now his obsessive wife was furious. Amelia suggested that Vino use his strange special potions to catch Tina. Vino argued that his potions were just throwable weapons, but Amelia corrected him, saying they were meant for recovery. Amelia found the situation challenging and suggested they plan over lunch. Canadia offered to host the meal at their home, and Amelia quickly jumped at the chance for free food. The trio returned home with some good fish to grill and share. When Vino entered the house, he spotted a female mage rummaging through their drawers. He immediately broke into a cold sweat as he recognized her. It was the phantom thief Tina. Tina noticed them and politely greeted them. She apologized for not sending her usual warning cards, explaining that she thought Vino's house was too ordinary for her usual theatrics. Vino realized she wasn't using a voice changer and quickly threw a potion at her. Tina casually stepped to the side and the potion missed. She then announced that her time was up, excused herself, and promised to return what she had taken later. Vino tried to stop her, not just because she was getting away, but because she was damaging his house in the process. Tina fled and vanished from sight before Vino could do anything. Frustrated, he yelled after her, asking her to at least leave some money to cover the repairs. Canadia checked the drawer and found a note from Tina. The note explained that she had returned some jewels, saying they weren't stolen and didn't belong to criminals. Vino admired Tina's reason for doing this, but he was still upset because she had broken into his house. Canadia also noticed that Vino's ring hadn't been returned. However, it seemed they could track the thief because of it. Canadia removed her gloves and revealed a ring with the same design. She explained that the matching rings were enchanted with dark magic, allowing the wearers to know each other's location. If Tina still had the ring, they could find her. Canadia then used magic on the ring, and a beam of light appeared, pointing toward the direction of the other ring. Vino tried to say something, but Canadia loudly continued, explaining that this magic was a secret technique from her homeland, known only to her family. Annoyed, Vino stopped her and seriously asked if she had been keeping tabs on him the entire time. He realized this was why Canadia always seemed to show up at the perfect moment, whether at home or elsewhere. Frustrated, Vino called Amelie to tickle Canadia as punishment. Canadia, now helpless from the tickling, protested, claiming it was her duty as his wife. Despite the odd moment, Vino realized they finally had a way to track the phantom thief. However, they needed to prepare first. Vino was confident he could win if he planned carefully and knew who he was up against. Meanwhile, in the aristocratic district, Tina watched a heavily guarded building from a distance. She noticed royal guards and curious bystanders nearby. She felt proud of how famous she had become and was excited to make her next move in front of such a large audience. Tina began her monologue, reflecting on her role as the Phantom Thief, a title she had inherited from her older sister. Her target this time was Count Philhel, a corrupt noble. She had heard that the Count's family had recently acquired a famous treasure, and she wondered if it might be the gem she sought, the sky lapis lazuli. The Count was known for exploiting people from the slums, forcing them into labor without pay to save money. If the treasure wasn't the one she was after, Tina would usually return it. However, if it belonged to a villain, she would sell it through a broker and donate the money to help the poor. With a confident smile, Tina sprang into action and grabbed everyone's attention. Standing atop a lamppost, she announced her target and used her family's illusion magic to make herself transparent. While invisible, she moved past the crowd unnoticed. This powerful magic had been passed down through her family for generations, though only a few had mastered it. Combined with her skills as a thief, she had become highly adept in her craft. Beforehand, Tina had already investigated the area thoroughly. She used a secret route to access the treasure room, which she considered an easy task. Inside, she searched through the treasures, but the sky lapis lazuli was nowhere to be found. However, she did discover some intriguing documents hidden among the valuables. The guards arrived quickly, surprising Tina with their speed. She used her illusion magic to turn invisible and slipped past the panicking guards. Running toward the balcony, she dropped her invisibility and pulled out the documents she had found earlier. She spread them out, announcing that they were her gift to the public. Onlookers, especially reporters, eagerly grabbed the papers, which revealed shocking secrets about the Count's family, including tax evasion. As she left, Tina smirked, already imagining the next day's headlines. Either her daring act or the Count's corruption would take center stage. Tina landed in a dark alley. She realized she had broken into most of the noble houses, leaving only a few to search for the gem she was after. She also felt relieved that the Ent couple had taken care of retrieving treasures from the Terra Wave, since she wasn't strong enough to face such a monster. She was determined to end her mission soon. Suddenly, a potion bottle flew toward her, but she managed to dodge it in time. Vino, the S-ranked potion maniac, stood before her, impressed by her quick reaction. Tina was shocked to see him there in the middle of the night. She wondered how he had figured out her escape route, since she was far from the noble district. Without wasting time, she used her illusion magic to disappear and try to flee. Though she was invisible, Vino stayed calm and threw a potion to his left. It nearly hit her, showing just how sharp his instincts were. He continued hurling potions in her direction, missing her directly but splashing liquid all around. Tina quickly realized the glowing liquid wasn't ordinary. It had a strange and suspicious shimmer. Vino gave Canadia a signal, and Canadia appeared from above, trying to strike Tina. Seeing the S-ranked fallen angel, Tina felt a cold sweat run down her back. She quickly threw daggers at Canadia, but Canadia easily blocked them with a single swing. Tina realized she couldn't win this fight and had only one trick left to escape the powerful duo. She used her illusion magic to create copies of herself. This spell took a lot of magic energy, and Tina knew she couldn't cast it again. She turned and tried to run. Just then, Vino threw multiple poison darts all at once, each one targeting the mirage copies Tina had created. One of the darts hit Tina directly on the forehead. Cornered and desperate, she watched as Canadia menacingly approached. Tina tried to use her family's sword technique, but instead she accidentally pulled out some pepper. She started coughing, and while her mouth was open, Canadia forced a potion down her throat. Tina panicked, wondering if it was poison. Her body grew weak, and even though her mind told her to stay awake, her consciousness faded. Tina's thoughts drifted to the past. An older woman had once told her the name her mother had given her. The woman said Tina had a natural talent for being a phantom thief, and claimed she could become the greatest if she mastered illusion magic. A woman had taken over the role of caring for Tina after her mother passed away. She also inherited the phantom thief business from Tina's mother, who died giving birth to her. Although Tina didn't want to become a phantom thief, she loved her older sister deeply. That love was the only reason she tried to learn the techniques of a phantom thief and illusion magic. 5 years ago, her sister fell ill and became bedridden. They lived in the slums and had no money, so her condition didn't get better. Tina thought about stealing to pay for her sister's treatment, but her sister reminded her that a true phantom thief was a symbol of justice and should never do anything evil. Before passing away, her sister told Tina to follow her own path, and if she ever got lost, to use the sky lapis lazuli. She said someone like Tina could soar to great heights. One day, Tina woke up to find herself tied up in a dark room. As the room lit up, she saw someone named Vino, who seemed glad she was awake. Tina realized she was strapped to a table and felt embarrassed. Vino removed his hat and mask and made a remark about her appearance, which made Tina angry and suspicious about his intentions. She assumed he was planning something inappropriate and thought about how helpless she was at that moment. Tina vowed not to reveal any secrets, claiming she could withstand any form of torture. Vino, seemingly at a loss, stepped aside. Outside the room, someone named Amelie was watching and laughing quietly. What followed was something Tina would remember as the worst experience of her life. It was the first time she truly felt like she had faced hell. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 17. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.